Call this meeting to order. It's 9:30. So thank you all for being here today. We appreciate it very, very much. It looks like all of our committee members are here with the exception of Mr. Berry, who informed us prior that he would be absent today. So first item on the agenda is the survey committee report. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, the survey committee has not convened yet to meet. We're still looking at this vendor that has been presented to us. And so for an update on that, I would like to defer to Taylor with the city.
Sorry.
Yep, no, thank you. That was a good reminder. Yes. The survey committee, Mr. Chair, has not convened yet. We are still reviewing some of the vendors and other items that we have. And so with that, I'd like to defer to Taylor for an update from the city.
So I think the link got sent out once again. I hope everybody got a chance to take a look at the discussion we had with Polco. Again, we would recommend engaging this group, and upon engagement, we'll include Cameron in discussions about putting the survey together, and then trying to figure out the groups that we would push that out to, events that we may set up to attain more surveys, and then I think working with the student group that Dana will give an update on later.
I have a question, Taylor. I just want to be clear in my mind since I've slept for this month. They will not write the questions for us, but they will help us with the question. Will they direct us to other cities that have used their poll, their survey for the same purpose that we're doing as a sales tax proposition?
Yes, so they have a library of all of their customers, and we would have access to that library of all the questions they ask within their surveys. We may have to parse through, okay, was it a sales tax? Was it maybe an ad valorem tax? But in my mind, the questions will be kind of broad. We may have some specific projects that, one thing that Karen mentioned last month was a portal that you have a list of maybe 10 projects, and people have a choice of ranking 3 of those projects. So that would give us a really good indication of what the community would support on a broad list of items that this group may come up with. So, but to answer your question, yes, we would have a library of questions to look through, and those questions have been vetted by the Polco company as well.
And there can be multiple, correct?
Yes, it's unlimited amount.
You could do something broad, like which area of improvement in the city is most important,
Right.
Infrastructure, parks, whatever. And then you could say, here are projects that we've come up with in these categories, which you like best, and then maybe even a third one. And if we narrow it down to 10 and we know we're only gonna have the money for 7, which ones do we go with, that sort of thing?
Yes, so I think it's a limited amount of surveys that we would be authorized to use for a 1-year period.
I had a comment related, and I have probably seen this before, and I did watch the video, but I didn't see this, but we've been quoted the price for $9,000 for the year, and I saw in here that there was a Spanish language translation add-on, and I would suggest that we consider that.
Okay, yep, certainly.
I agree as well.
So are we waiting on a motion for this? Is that?
Yes.
So your recommendation, Taylor, is to engage Polco?
Yep, just get started, and then maybe after that discussion, some discussion about timing of putting surveys out, getting so we can kind of a timeline to get prepared for putting something out for the public.
I have just one more clarification on the motion, and I will be prepared to make one, but we don't have any actual spending authority on this
No.
board. So we are making a recommendation.
Yes.
Our motion is for a recommendation to the city to engage Polco under the Engage module and prioritize tool with the Spanish language translation add-on. Is that a sufficient motion?
I believe so.
I will make that motion.
I will second.
Mhm.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Chair.
All right. Next item on the agenda, community outreach. Dylan?
Yes, sir. I've been to several meetings and organizational things this month and discussed and told people, hey, what we're trying to do and would love information and feedback. And even when I'm out and about, like firefighters with the police and taking their feedback on things that they've seen and know. And I'm just kind of still just gathering that data from what people are saying. I'm hoping on the next meeting, I'll have a really good detailed list of different things. One thing that I thought was really cool that I heard was maybe our own in-house mechanic. I mean, think about how many vehicles we have in the city. So if we could keep that money in-house somehow, maybe with the fire station possibly getting moved, maybe we could convert that fire station into that place maybe, or maybe have just a slot for it. That was one thing I heard. That was kind of a new one.
How many vehicles do we have total? Anybody have a ballpark?
No idea. I know we have probably 40 in PD alone.
Yeah, it's
Big bills to bet it
75,
actually a profitable endeavor, actually.
Who are we contracting with for those to be maintained now?
So it's local shops, oil changes and tires and things like that, which would be more what the mechanic, shop would do. Any of your major, rebuilds of, engines or anything like that, those would obviously have to be farmed out, but it's more the day-to-day maintenance, on things that I think that, central garage would be part of.
So it's not, there's not just one company. We take them to a variety of places around Tahlequah as they need serviced.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dylan, do you need help with this? I mean, there's a long list of civic clubs and organizations and whatnot that
Honestly,
I'd like to reach out to, but that's a lot for you and your committee to do.
I kind of make this joke lately that, I could try to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. So a lot of things I do, I'm already tied to so many things that kind of I just add that to the list. I'm going to mention this as well while I'm here doing whatever else I'm doing.
Well, I think if you had a list of all the organizations we'd like to address.
Yeah.
I think you might have some volunteers among this group to help you out with some of that.
For sure.
So
We definitely need to have some kind of community outreach committee
We
meeting
do.
set up as well.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
And Karen does have a list that she's produced over the years of civic groups and other organizations, that we'd be glad to share.
Was that really good group? We went to the org, what was that called? Org board, and there was, what, like 10 different, different groups that were just at that. They kind of have that, once a month or something?
Right.
Yeah.
But we do need help. I mean, you can't, you're right, Mark. Superman can't do all of it.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
There is a long list. And I know once a year, I think the newspaper puts out a booklet that's got a list of all the organizations.
But they just did.
It's a lot.
Mhm.
And I'd like, we have connections at different groups that you're involved
Yeah.
in. And so, while we just, Janet speaking to the retired educators would be easy for her and very effective to the group because they know and have tremendous respect and trust with her. So let us all help you. Okay? Good point, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah, if somehow, Dylan, if you could get that list to us.
Okay.
I think you might have some volunteers to help you out.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I think the further we get into this, the more important, we're talking about what we're planning to do and how we're gonna come up with the projects, but once we have the final package, that's when we're really gonna have to go out to these groups and encourage them to remember to vote. And answer any questions or concerns that they may have on whatever kind of the final issue is.
But I think it's also important now that we solicit their input on what they feel is important to the community. Totally different than you were thinking, I don't know.
And it might be great timing if we looked at when that Polco survey was gonna start coming out to then go hit.
Mhm.
You know, we divide it up and everybody takes one to make sure that they're engaged in that survey and that their feedback is being heard.
Good point, good point. Thank you. All right, anything else, Dylan? Here?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Next item, NSU Student Committee. Dana?
So we met, Holly, what day did we meet? Wednesday. And Chrissy and Dr. Barr were on that call. The students have put together a scope of work agreement, which everybody has in their packet. Janet had fully read through it and made a couple of small changes in the verbiage and kind of the meaning of what they had written. And so we really just need approval for signature on this for today. And it just really goes through kind of the steps that they're going to take. So on Wednesday, what we gathered from the students was we had asked them to go out and collect data on other communities our size, of similar size, that had either passed or did not have successful passing of their bond issues. And so they presented those examples to us on Wednesday. I think the one thing that they probably didn't understand was that they were really looking at property tax, bond issues, where we're really looking at a sales tax bond issue. So Chrissy had asked them to go back out and kind of look for some additional communities our size that were then also looking at the sales tax piece of it. So they are going to continue that. They had also put together the start of a community list, which Karen was nice enough to send that community list. And Dylan, if you need me to send that to you, I will. I've asked the students to combine what they had found in the community against that community list and put that together as one whole comprehensive list. And then to start to kind of look for the holes that are not necessarily on either list. So that's what we expect that they'll come back to us with. We typically do it a few days before this meeting happens. So it gives them enough time to do their work and then have a meeting where they can present that work. So that's kind of where we're at. They're also going to start messaging, and I don't mean they're going to put it out there. They're just going to come back to us with some drafts of community emails that could go out, social media posts that could go out, video, anything that could help us promote this for the committee to then kind of vet and make sure that it's worded appropriately and sending the right message. And that way, when we do get to this point, we are at least ready with some messaging to start pushing it out there. So I think that's, Janet, Chelsea, did you all remember anything different?
No, that's good.
And you're requesting approval today of the scope of work.
Yes,
of the
they,
signature?
from their teacher standpoint, they're the last group that has not gotten their scope of work signed. So right now they have 0 points out of 50. So I'm sure they would like some of those points back.
And who needs to sign?
Really anybody. It doesn't matter. Karen Murphy's name is on this because she's kind of acting as the client, but it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It could be anybody. It's not like it's a legally binding agreement. It really is just a practice for them to go through of what a scope of work would look like.
Do they get bonus points if the mayor signs it?
I'd be happy to sign. You tell me to.
So is that a form of a motion?
Yeah, if I can make the motion, then yes, I would make a motion to approve the scope of work agreement from the NSU students, huh? Recommend.
The mayor.
There you go. I would recommend that we support the scope of work agreement with all the changes and move forward with a signature.
I second.
Oh,
We both second.
Motion made and co-seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is approved. Thank you, Donna.
Nice.
And next item, discussion of permanent sales tax versus continued sales tax. And I put this on here because I missed the last meeting and I apologize, but I know Chief King got up and made some really good points regarding we build these facilities, but yet we don't have the funds to allow the departments to keep up these facilities. So I put this on the agenda to begin this discussion, permanent versus extension. So with that in mind, I'd like to ask Dr. Janet Barr to begin the discussion.
Well, after the meeting and hearing Chief King speak, and he made some very good points, and I'm sure that many of the other departments in the city have the same concern. And so I was sitting at home thinking about this, and we've had this, sales tax for now, 12, 13 years that we've been paying it. And if we're asking to extend it for another 15 years, we're talking about 25 to 30 years of paying this tax. And that seems like it's permanent in my mind. And if there are needs in the city for operational costs, if we, pass a continued sales tax, and on down the line, that tax is not continued, that the voters do not approve it on down the line. What's going to happen if we earmark a certain percentage of that extended tax for operation purposes? Then those funds are not available to continue. And so that was my concern. I think it's worthy in our survey that we put out that we ask this very question, but couch it in the language that we've already been paying it, and if it's an extended sales tax, we will be continuing to pay it for 25 years, so that people don't see it as a new tax. And I was looking at the information that was provided about sales tax at our last meeting. And if it is made a permanent tax, we would still be within reason of some of the other cities, like Lawton is 4.125. Fort Gibson, I was surprised, 4.5. Sand Springs, 4.05. You know, and I just picked out a few, but we would still be within a reasonable city sales tax if it became a permanent. And so that was my thinking as I left that meeting.
I have a question. Is it, and I don't even know if this is possible, but is it possible to make part of it a permanent tax while the other part stays a continued tax? That way I just feel like in the minds of citizens, they might accept it better if that 1%, right, or 2%, whatever we decide that is the permanent, but the rest of it becomes, I don't know.
So, yes, you can, but I think it would have to be two separate, questions on the ballot.
Okay.
So just for easy numbers, let's say half of the 3/4, half of the, or 0.5 of the 0.75, we say that's gonna be for capital improvements, and then the remaining 0.25 would be a permanent tax. Those would be two separate, ballots.
Issue.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
election, questions, so.
Dana, in thinking through that, to me, that is really confusing.
No, I
It would have to
agree.
be
I
very
don't,
Clear
Uh-huh.
which
Yeah.
one people are voting for, and, I don't think you could lump it into a single vote.
I agree.
But we
I'm
can
not.
ask, our city attorney on that, to see, but I would imagine it would have to be, since they're for two separate things, you'd have to do two separate, items to vote for.
I think that the concern, if you make the whole thing permanent, is you've got a list of things here that we're asking people to approve for capital improvements. And when those lists of things are done, then there's still this money coming in perpetuity that no one had any input in
Right.
when they voted on it.
It's true.
And with capital improvements, the reason you typically do kind of these limited, because you want to be able to turn around to the community and say, look, we did what we said we were gonna do with your money, now give us more money to do more stuff.
Yeah.
So I think putting capital improvement on a permanent tax is not, I don't think it's legally problematic. I think it's perceptive problematic.
Sure.
Well,
And,
anytime you make a tax permanent, you kind of remove the checks and balance system that the taxpayers I think either want or whatever. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. And I think some excellent points have been brought up about making it permanent. And I understand the need for it, but if you make it permanent, you remove the check and balance system of the public. And because they want to make sure that the city officials are doing what they say they're doing and
Right.
things like that. So,
Just a note on the list of all of the tax rates for all the communities. So, as we're going through this, a lot of the communities have general obligation bonds, which is ad valorem. And so that's property tax, and it's not sales tax. I haven't researched this, but I would guess that the communities like Sand Springs that have the 4.1%, that is all operating expenses, or that is all operating revenues. I would just make that assumption, or maybe they may have some dedication, like our street and sidewalk tax. I mention that because our 3.25 that you see for us, and I think I mentioned this last month, we really only use 2% for operating. And so even that list, and you look at our numbers and the other communities, it's not you have to go a little bit further on really comparables on what their tax percentage is for operations. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And if you want us to dive into that a little bit further, we could certainly do that for this discussion.
I think that'd be a good
Yeah,
idea.
I think so.
I'd like to know, maybe from a municipal standpoint, who are our peer cities?
Yeah.
And how does their tax break down? You know, you said only 2% goes for the city operate. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was all 3.25. So if we could get a breakdown on that from our peer cities, that would help us a lot.
You bet.
Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, just, first comment that, I'm on total full support of, some of this being a permanent tax for our city, for general fund. Because that's what department heads struggle with. That's what our city administrators struggle with, and mayor and council. There's only so many dollars to spread around, and we've consistently only got that percentage for as long as I can remember. But that being said, the jail tax, and I think it'd be, advantageous to look at and see how they did theirs, because they did have a portion of it that would roll off when the jail was paid for. I don't know how it was worded. I don't know how it was done, but I think they did the sales tax to where a portion of it, once the jail was paid for, it rolled off. So that's something you might want to look at. I'll be glad to dig it up myself and get it to you if I can. So, but that's.
So we could
that was
potentially
the
then,
avenue
it'd
they-
still be a 2 bond or a 2 issue, but we could have it worded so that once, whatever those community improvements were that were not gonna be permanent, that tax would then roll off or be a new bond committees put together and new initiatives, right?
Yes, and I'm very glad to see you guys take this so seriously, because I think this is very, very important for our future. Because, our sales tax percentage is low in comparison to all of the cities. And, it takes quite a bit of effort to make things work with what it is. So thank you guys for your work.
Thank you, Ray.
We still have it. I mean, we are moving with the assumption that we want to renew the 0.75. I mean, we may hear from our community that they're willing to pay an additional 0.25 for the projects that people want to see. And then maybe it's a 2.5 permanent and a 7.5 on capital projects or something. I mean, that's part of what we're doing, right? And I mean, nobody really likes raising taxes, but people are willing to do it sometimes if you can show them what you're going to do with that money. So I do think that these questions are important part of the survey, not just what we're going to do with the money, but how we're going to do it. Is it going to be 15-year? Is some of it going to be permanent? Is there any appetite in this community for an increase? And that's an easy question, right? Would you
Right.
be willing to pay an additional,
0.25% or
25%.
50% or, yeah, 0.50.
Ashton, are you getting all these notes for the questionnaire?
Perfect.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on this topic? Okay, thank you. Yes, we could have that follow-up and Taylor and Ray, that'd be great. Thank you all very much. And next item, discussion and possible action to select firm for architectural engineering services.
I added this last minute, we are, the timeframe working on is, fall of 2026 for the election. Sometime in the spring of 2026, finalizing our list of projects and kind of what's the bonding of the decisions on, what percentage of tax and all that we're discussing right now. So, about a year, to kind of get a solid footing on, the projects and things like that. And so I thought it'd be a good time to begin, reaching out to architectural firms, to kind of engage them for cost estimates. And it comes at a good time, for the city in general, because over the last, 4 or 5 years, we've been using, different engineering firms and architectural firms. And we haven't landed on, a single one. And when you land on a single firm, it's a little bit easier. We're only communicating with one group. And so, it's a good time to kind of set up, the city in general to have a single, point of contact for architectural and engineering, services. Mark, you know well, Hub's been the engineering firm for TPWA for a number of years, and it's a very, smooth, good relationship. So I think it's a good time for the city to kind of move towards this. We will approach this, by abiding by all of the federal procurement guidelines. And so if there are federal funds available in the future on projects, we'll satisfy that. So, we'll put a request for qualifications out, across the nation. Anybody who's willing to send us some qualifications, conduct interviews, have a scoring system, and we'll pass all that procurement, requirements. And so future, we don't have to redo that on every single project. I would, request that, some members of the committee be, a part of that selection process. And so volunteers, that would be willing to do that. We'd probably set up interviews, put it out next week, for qualifications, get those in, wait a good 30 days for people to respond, and then, start conducting interviews and present something to this group in the next couple months, to select somebody, and, then have them on the agenda to be our engineer and architect of record, for the foreseeable future. So just wanted to put this on there because although we have a year, it does take some, like I said, 2 months just to kind of hire somebody to do this for us. They're gonna have to put some work in for the cost estimates. So, any volunteers or Mark, do you have anybody, that you would recommend to be a part of
I
that?
don't know Hub.
Well, I'm saying, just from your.
Now, are architectural and engineering services separate?
So they are separate, but there are firms that
That
do,
do-
both,
okay.
and we would likely select a group that does both. That's what we would request our FQ is somebody that can handle both in-house.
Yeah, and you probably have some good recommendations for us.
And I say we've been doing, separate groups for the last 4 or 5 years, really for, it's a job interview. So we kind of know which ones we've like to work with already. Not that they're not gonna get a chance if they submit something, but, we've been interviewing firms for the last 4 or 5 years for set up for a long-term situation.
I'm familiar with that process through the school bond
Yes.
process because we have to hire and we've now gone through our second round of that too for our next bond. So I would volunteer to participate in
All right.
that
Excellent, thank you.
meetings or interviews.
Yeah, I'll, of course, volunteer as well to be a part of that.
All right,
I'll volunteer.
okay. And on our crew, our side will have 3 or 4 as well. So we'll have a good group of interviewers and people to look at those proposals.
And you have to publish notification of this, right?
Yeah, we'll publish notification. We'll get it out on as much, in websites as we
Yeah.
can for that kind of thing and go forward with it.
Okay,
But we'll let you know when we set up interviews and we'll certainly give you all the packets that we receive.
And this may be way early in the game here, but there's 2 different ways, a project can be managed. I'm sure as you know. So you can do like the CM style where basically contractor just gets kind of a percentage. They're more protected, but then city or us or whoever would kind of approve the bids as they go, and then there's other style where you bid it out. And 7 different general contractors will bid it, and then they'll protect their margin. That's more similar to the way I think Hellas is doing theirs down there, is they just bid it and won it, right?
They had a state contract, that they had, and so as a city entity, we can use state contracts to, where we don't have to competitively bid, the state technically competitively bids it, and they're the state. contractor.
Yeah. So
So,
there's 2 different ways. So like example, the hospital, CNOC up there. That is Manhattan is in charge of it. But everything still goes through Cherokee Nation and John Asbill for almost anything they approve. But then there's some projects where there's 7 different general contractors. They pull up all the plans and then they all bid against each other, and then they totally take on that project and all the risk involved with if they did good on their bid or not. So I don't know, that might be too early in the game to determine where we go with that, but that'd be something else to think about.
sure, yeah, and so this would be for the architectural and engineering services. Once we get to the point of construction, that would be when a decision would be made on that, how we choose to manage that. And so, but those are good points.
Thank you. Well, we're just spending the city's money like nothing. Thank you, Taylor. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mayor.
Oh, sure. When it's gone, it's gone.
All right,
Do
thank
we
you.
need a motion? Or no,
To make a
a
recommendation.
A
recommendation?
recommendation, it would help, be nice. Someone recommend that we begin to solicit architect and engineering firms.
What did you, that we will,
The RFQ qualification bid.
is that the recommendation
Yes,
that,
just, authorize the city to begin selecting, architectural and engineering firms. With the, members of the committee also, being a part of that selection process.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the recommendation that has been proposed by the city for us to begin the process of selecting a firm for the architectural and engineering services.
Thank you, Cameron. Is there a second?
second,
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next item is project suggestions. Has anyone given any further thought to potential projects? Now, I know Taylor has a list from the various department heads,
Yes.
and I'd ask him to kind of keep that to himself for now. So at some point, we probably do need to release some of that information, but we can decide that a little later. So I don't want the public to think it's a preconceived notion. So anyway, has anyone given any thought to additional projects?
I think I've just been waiting for the kickoff to the community, just for them to be able to have some.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, we've talked to people, and of course, bike trails and that kind of stuff has been of interest to a lot of the community that I've talked to, but it needs to really be pushed out to that broader community to see, you know, is it that we want to cover the
Yeah.
pool and make it a 365 family entertainment space?
Yeah.
Or, you know, do we want additional trail systems to keep the rider safe? I don't know.
That's why the survey is important, and contacting
Yes.
these various organizations in our city.
Mhm.
Yeah, we need their input. Need their input.
It might be good when we do start making those rounds to those community groups to have that list of what the department heads are wanting, just to give them a jumping off point, right? I think it's sometimes really hard for the general public to just come up with, like, they want more family activities, right? You hear that a lot. There's not enough. But I don't think they necessarily understand what a city can run and build, right?
Mhm.
All the time. So I think some of those jumping off points will be helpful for some of those groups.
well, some of the things like the, talking about the mechanics garage, like no one that doesn't know about that would say, hey, we need our own mechanics garage. But when you hear the reason for it and that it can actually save the city money and centralize services. And it's like, oh yeah, well, that might be a great idea, but we're only gonna hear that from people in the city. We're not gonna hear that from the general public because they will, I mean, people care about it in the sense of they want efficient government, but they don't care about it in the sense of it's something they're gonna see and,
Right.
you know. think of-
Appreciate.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
And see the benefit necessarily.
I think the most difficult task this committee will have will be paring down those
Agreed.
great project ideas
Mm.
down to fit within the bonding capacity of the city. Pure and simple. That will be our biggest challenge,
Agreed.
so. Okay. All right, give it some thought.
I think that's challenging to pare it down, but I also think being able to align the package or packages so that even the smallest, in the public's perception of what's a small project that's very meaningful to the community gets passed also. You know, what I hear is if you put it with fire or police needs, that you're gonna it'll pass. But if you put sewer plant by itself, it might not pass.
Yeah.
Because that's not very sexy, as we say. So being able to pare down the projects, but also to package the projects, I think. And it may be one vote and it may be 3 votes. You know, watching other communities, they have proposition 1, 2, and 3, and they're different.
Right.
So I just want to echo what Ray said. This is a tremendous amount of help. We would not be tackling this by ourselves, and for you all to commit the time and the interest in what you're doing is so appreciated, not just by the city employees, but by the community. They just don't know it yet. Everyone told you. They don't know they appreciate you yet.
Thank you, Mayor. Any public comments today? No public comments?
No, come on.
Actually, I have one.
Here we go.
I'm
Thank you,
gonna
Jeremy.
reiterate. I'm gonna put those right here. I'm not gonna speak long, but I just want to reiterate, I'm Jeremy from the library.
Mhm.
Any help you will need in getting information out, that's what we do. Also, if it's not on your list of civic groups, we have a Friends of the Library group that meets the first Wednesday of every month. April 2nd is the next, meeting at 10 o'clock. I have a pretty good idea what they would advocate for, but they are also connected to other groups, so they're all part of several community groups. So if you want to, I invite anyone to come and, to that meeting and speak to them. So, need any help, let me know. I'll also put updated, last time I gave some random figures of 2023. We do have 2024 numbers, here. If anyone wants a copy, I'll be happy to give it to you. I'll leave it there for now.
Do they meet at the library?
Huh?
Do they meet at the library? Friends of the
Yes,
library?
yes, it will
And
be
what
at the
time?
library
What time is that?
10 o'clock.
10, okay.
on April 2nd.
Perfect.
Anyone have any questions for me? Okay. Thank you all.
All righty, thank you. Any other public comments? Mr. Hammond?
I did have, on your others, on your civic organizations that you're reaching out to that Dylan's been compiling, are we looking for endorsements from those organizations or just to inform them?
Ideas.
Ideas.
I would,
Ideas?
I'm informing them and then I'm asking them if they have any opinion on it.
yeah,
themselves.
input, yeah.
Okay.
Input, I
Right.
think, more than anything at this point.
Sure.
Main Street, for example, they're like, are we doing, like, when I was presenting some of the ideas, and they're like, well, we're doing anything on Main Street? Like, they were kind of mad at me, like, you know, you're supposed to represent us a little bit, we're doing nothing on Main Street, you know? But, yeah, so obviously, like, but whatever community and organizations, obviously, they're gonna wanna have a little bit of an idea of how does this benefit us as well?
I think, truly, I think when it comes closer to time to vote, if you did, this is endorsed by the Masons or the Kiwanis or, all those organizations that are out there, I think that carries a lot of weight.
The
So,
ones that can, right? Because there are a lot that can't. They
If they
can't
can't-
put out a statement that says we want you to vote yes on this because it can affect their.
yeah,
knowledge status and that.
absolutely.
But there are a lot that can.
Even the county, I mean, so just a thought.
Yeah, I would just say like the first phase is the input phase, and then once the input's gathered, this group kind of identifies what those projects are, and then the next phase is the campaign phase where you know, it's not voted yet, say vote yes, but it's, here's what the group's put together. We'd like you to support this. If you can, kind of deal. So.
And I think we heard that when the officials from Broken Arrow came and spoke with us, when they got to their campaign period, they have a group, and I don't remember what group it was, that was specifically, you know, endorsing it. We are campaigning for this on behalf of the city. We want you to vote yes, so.
That was probably the chamber.
It wasn't, but,
It was a
Friends of
community.
Broken
Arrow
or something.
They are, we'll accept it.
but yeah, if the chamber's interested in that, we'll follow up on conversations.
Yes. I definitely would love to have you guys present to the chamber, and my goal would be to have them endorse it and support it.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
You guys can't say vote yes, but we can. That's why we're a C6 and not a C3, and let's use it, so.
Related to that, we, and then I know this may be something that the students are working on, but we need to be thinking about what we're calling this, like in catching it, you know, we have the Build Better Brook or whatever theirs was with Broken Arrow, but something that sounds cool. So even now, when we start pushing out surveys, when we're talking about gathering, if we can start using catchphrase, when vote time comes, people have been hearing about this for a year and a half. So I'm not a creative, so I'm not suggesting anything. I'm
I
just
like that. I'm with you. I'm not creative, but if you guys could come up with something.
someone who is.
Absolutely.
Something that includes the word Tahlequah. It sounds fun and cool, and so let's all think about that for our next meeting.
And we could kick that to the students to generate at least some starting points.
Really good idea.
With their little young minds come up with.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for saying that, Michelle. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't.
Only what I was thinking.
Okay. All right, anything else, public comment wise? Does everyone have their assignments then for our next meeting?
Yes,
All
sir.
right.
I think so.
Next
Yeah.
meeting is Friday, April 4th, 9:30 here. And we also need to begin the process of establishing some other meeting times
Yes.
so that it's more convenient for our citizens.
Mark,
Yes.
we are gonna have the Tahlequah Community Roundtable on April 15th. The chamber's we're doing that in conjunction with the city. Could be a great opportunity for input from the community. It's designed to be a discussion with the community, so, might be a great way to kind of bring this into it.
What's the time on that
It'll be in the evening.
evening? So
Yeah.
that might,
Well, that would
Yeah.
be good.
What, like 6, is that?
Probably closer to 5, just because we don't want people going home from work, because they won't come back out. I know.
That's me.
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
we're gonna try and be like, okay, we're gonna open doors at 5, program starts 5:15, 5:30, something like that, because we don't want them going home.
And where,
We don't know exactly where yet. We've hosted it at, GoYe before. We get really great turnout up there. We definitely want to host it offsite from a city premise, just so that way, it has the community feel as opposed to, we had it in here last time, the city did, and had great turnout, so we're hoping maybe if people don't feel like they have to come stand at this podium, maybe get some good turnout, so that's the hope.
Nathan, when you know the details of that, will you
Sure will.
let Ashton know so she can notify all of us?
We will.
Yeah.
We're working with Taylor and the
Thank
mayor
you.
on
That'd
this.
be a great opportunity for us.
the date is firm though, so you can put the date in your calendar.
Yes,
Tax
okay.
day.
Yeah,
yeah.
thank
We're
you.
gonna help you spend all the tax money that you get.
Right.
We would be ready with a kind of a broad survey by then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought maybe so.
I think even just, if that wasn't ready, a brainstorming session with that community group, right, with some just notepads and
Mhm.
whiteboards and being able to gather some really raw ideas would, even if Politico or Polco, not Politico.
And we could, even if the survey's not ready, we could tee it up as well, you know, hey, we're coming to initially talk to you today. We know that the survey will be ready in 2 weeks, and here's where you can find it.
Okay, you might have a representative ready to speak about the committee too.
Yeah.
To be the leader of the committee. I don't know if that's your chairman or not.
It is.
Yes.
Said the coach. Do we, with the Red Fern Festival coming up, I know there's opportunity for some booth space that the city, what are we using our booth space for at that one?
It's just city booth to get general information, but the idea was to open up something there to, do surveys and things like that.
That might be a perfect opportunity for us to have a QR code, something that they could quickly pick up with that Polco survey. If it's ready, I mean, if it's gonna be ready potentially by the 15th, we could launch it at Red Fern and at least get it in the hands of,
Walk-bys.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of,
Many of them wouldn't be Tahlequah citizens is the drawback, but then they probably wouldn't care to fill it out if they weren't here.
right,
You know,
exactly.
they'll just go, oh, that's not me. And
And with the Polka, I mean, this was mentioned last time, they can verify at,
that's right.
location of the person, so.
Yeah,
Even
good
if
talk.
they said they were, and they weren't, we can verify it.
Let's try for that then, because that's a great group of people.
Mhm.
potential.
All right, thank you. Any other comments for today? Any other suggestions? Carol, entertain a motion to adjourn?
Nobody wants to leave?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for being here.